Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by TheLines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer. He's on the East Coast. And we've got another two games here in the NBA Cup on Wednesday. Got the Knicks and the Hawks, got the Dubs and the Rockets. So we've got best bets in this episode. Not going to lie to you, I've got some same game parlays because we've only got two games. And I don't really want to touch the totals, but we both are in agreement about some of the stuff on the side. So we'll be going through all of that. Also have player props up in a separate episode. So going to be make sure to like and subscribe to that page so you can continue to follow along all season with us. Nate, let's go ahead and jump right into your first play here for these December 11th games.
Yeah, and I think I have to put a mea culpa on Jalen Suggs, calling him not the most skilled offensive player. And then he pulled out his bag last night to keep the Magic in that game and roasted Damian Lillard as everybody has this season.
In your defense, that is exactly right. One, I think we both learned our lesson with picking anybody to go under versus Milwaukee's just atrocious defense that fools us once every 5 games. And the other aspect would be some of those rebounds fell into his lap. Some of those threes were absolutely absurd. But to your point, we are sorry for that pick.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on. Like this cup slate here, I'm gonna take the Rockets as my best bet here, -2. It's down a little bit because Alpi Şengün is on the injury report, but hasn't missed a game all year. I don't think he would with what is it, like knee soreness, knee management. Yeah. No big deal. Also, like he might get benched in this game anyway, and that's just part of the cap. But I mean, the biggest part is just like it's time. 15 straight losses to the Warriors. The Rockets, who are up for every game, are going to be on fire for this game. They are going to put their foot down. They were extremely frustrated to not win that overtime game at the beginning of the season because Ime made the adjustment too late. And then they lose again without Steph. But guard was down in both those games. They got kind of burned by Kuminga, who just doesn't really get it going when Steph is out there. So that's just a weapon that's off the floor. But yeah, the streak ends here. Houston at home, very small spread. I like it. And the adjustment, I mean, I'm talking about is like Şengün has struggled against Draymond, Looney, whatever combination the Warriors throw at him. So if that happens again, like Ime can just go to like his version of these new death lineups, which is any combination of Tari Eason and Amen Thompson, basically. You throw in Jabari and the starting guards, and they're plus 19.5 net. You throw in Şengün and Brooks with those guys, and they're plus 63 net, both in about 20 minutes with those guys. And they completely unlocked the game. I said in that first matchup, they outscored the Dubs by 28 in the second half to force overtime, mostly because Eason and Amen Thompson were out there wreaking havoc. Dubs 0-5 against the spread, their last 5 on the road, 5-7 against the spread, their last 12 overall. Steph dealing with knee soreness, etc. We don't know if Wiggins is going to play. That would definitely hurt them defensively more than anything. But I mean, yeah, just more about the Rockets, a team we want to back because their defense brings it in a playoff environment. That's what you want. Even though the Warriors have the experience, the Rockets are hungrier. That's kind of been what the NBA Cup is, right? You see the younger, hungrier team with more to prove. OKC last night, like, yeah, we're gonna get our get back from the playoffs. You saw the Magic and the Pacers put in very good efforts the last couple of years, and that's what these Rockets are, especially at home, 9-3 straight up, and on 2 days rest, they're 4-0 this season, like winning by 10 points a game. Also, the key defensive metrics when they get a little extra rest. Holding teams under 30% from 3, which is unbelievable in the NBA today. 21 assists per game, pretty much league lead there, and limiting free throws. So limiting assists and free throws. I think they give the Dubs the clamps here. It just kind of like Minnesota did in a couple of those last 2 games, right? Just getting into them physically.
You have so many good points laid out here. I just also don't know if I agree. Here's my counter. Steve Kerr owns the Rockets. And that's not legit. You have done a lot better work to come to your conclusion. My main thing is I think this matchup does just favor the Dubs. That's it. And it's the fouling up for the Rockets. If you put the Dubs at the line, which they're already not a very great free throw shooting team. Like they make the free throws, but they don't get there very often. They're a jump shooting team still to this point. But if you give them extra free points, then that's obviously going to be to your detriment. The 3-point stuff, I just think sometimes Steph supersedes that stuff. The way he beats OKC, the way he beats this team, that would be my only thing. Is Steph going to be geared up? Jonathan Kuminga is going to be crucial in this game. There's like 4 Jonathan Kumingas on the Rockets, like Tari Easton, Jabari Smith, Amin Thompson, all these like fours that are like very, very athletic, 3-4 hybrids kind of thing. But yeah, I don't have much to refute what you're saying here at all, other than like, I just like this Warriors matchup for them. But
and the Steph mojo. Yeah, you're just like Steph in a big game. Yeah, I'm scared. I understand.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. But like you've got a lot of logic there. So like scared money ain't making money here. I like what you're saying. So let me stick to this game for a minute. I'm just gonna take a player prop. I wanted to ladder, or not ladder, but parlay something with Jalen Green and an under. And I'm just gonna take his under on the points and assists combined. And take that at under 23.5 points and assists. And that I would grab that as soon as you can, because I don't think that's going to hang around fully. And we're going to see mostly 22.5 at this point for JG. But like the dudes who lock him up are playing. So in the 2 games this year, and you'd look at 1 game last year where they had Kuminga and Wiggins in at the same time, those 2 dudes just clamped him. And then in the first game, in the second game, Gary Payton clamped him. And that's another reason why I like JK in this game, by the way, Kuminga. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in player props. But his defense and his versatility is crucial versus a team that even Alpi Şengün at center, great rebounder, but is also a very versatile guy that you want to be able to make sure you can have someone out on him on the 3-point line, which will be a lot of Draymond, but I think we're still going to see Kuminga, Wiggins starting lineups, especially today when it comes to guarding Jalen Green. And then you throw GP2, the mitten, on him as well. He played a lot on him on the second game. All those dudes are limiting him to about like less than half a point a minute in the games that he's in. So he's at about like 15 points for that reason against this Dubs squad on defense, where they're 3rd best versus the pick and roll ball handler, giving up the 3rd fewest points. They're 2nd best in limiting transition points against everybody, right? So that's how Jalen Green scores. That's how this Rockets team scores. That's really what it comes down to, is this Rockets team doesn't pass. They do not look for spot ups. They don't look to drive and kick. They just want to shoot. It's like 3 different dudes all score the majority of their points off of pick and roll plays, and being the ball handler who pulls up off the pick and roll, not finding the roll man, right? So that tells you something right there. They're bottom 3 in terms of assists per game. They're bottom 3 in terms of assist percentage on their shots. There's nothing for the spot up for them. And that's how you beat the Dubs, right? And that's a big part of why I like Jalen Green to go under, is he's not ever in the spot up. He's got the ball in his hands the most on the team. Fred VanVleet right there with him. But those 2 dudes don't score that way. So it's tough to take them to get, like, I would even consider it under on Fred VanVleet assists at like 6.5. The man's averaging 5 on the season. And yet we think that somehow because the Dubs are better at ball pressure, that he's going to find those spot ups and just hit them. I'm not buying it quite as much. Now, at the same time, like if you get less Şengün and more Jabari Smith, crazy to say, but I do think in this instance against this team, that is the better play. And so Şengün being out actually still to me doesn't impact Jalen Green. And to be honest, I don't know how much he impacts if the Rockets can pull this one out. And you made that very good point in the second half after they were getting blown out in that first game, just like 30 points in the first half at one point was the largest lead that the Dubs hit. And then they come back to bring it to overtime. Like, yeah, that's because Şengün was on the bench and had one of his worst games of the season. So either way, I don't think that helps Jalen Green. I like the under for him. Just throwing out a couple other player props that I'm not going to get to in the player props video, like the Fred VanVleet under assists, and potentially Şengün under 20.5 points might be worth a hit right now before he's even declared in or out.
Yeah, I mean, definitely lean under in general in this game. I mean, both teams play extraordinary defense right now. The Dubs limiting everything on the interior, limiting exactly what you're talking about, how Jalen Green likes to score. So that's a fine fade there. But let's go to the first game of the night. I will take the points with the Atlanta Hawks here. It's a little scary now, down at +7.5, +8. You could get it close to +10 when this first opened, and I think people were kind of knee-jerk reaction, like, oh, Trae Young back at the Garden, first time in 2 years or whatever. They're going to be ravenous against, and the Knicks are going to be fired up, and look at that, the Hawks lost by 30 on Saturday. Well, I think that's just like a clear look-ahead spot in some ways, and also they sat Jalen Johnson with shoulder soreness. I think he's definitely good to go here, and a huge part of their team. So maybe you're getting a little bit of value, probably 2 points here if you consider the Hawks the way they've played before that blowout, like looking really good. I mean, had won 6 straight actually, importantly on defense, got up to 9th in opponent 3-point percentage in that span and 10th in points per game. Because that's pretty much the biggest deal here is like, if you're letting the Knicks shoot open threes, like they will just run away from you, right? But if they can stay home on the shooters while using their pretty good individual matchups for the Knicks big two, I think they can hang here. I mean, Dyson Daniels on Jalen Brunson only allowed 3 field goal attempts in the last meeting in the fourth quarter. Forced him to take 11 of his 18 shots from 3, settling. Not going to be able to get in the lane and really distribute as much because Dyson Daniels is so sticky. And Cat, pretty inefficient, 34 points. I mean, he had 34, sure, but his last 4 against Clint Capella has shot under 50% inside the arc. So, I mean, are you depending on him hitting more threes here? And the Hawks in an underdog spot lately. They've been undervalued, 6-1 against the spread and straight up the last 7 as dogs here. And then going back to that, actually beat the Celtics, right? In that kind of spot. I don't think the Knicks will overlook them the same way here, but I do think they can be competitive. I mean, and you got Bogey and Hunter back. It's pretty stark why they went on that streak, right? I mean, when you have they're an actual solid defender on the wing and another scoring playmaker, you look at the record 10-4 with DeAndre Hunter, 7-3 with Bogey, plus 6.8 net with both those guys, and the defensive rating is like 5 or 6 points better with either of them in the lineup. So I think that they can do a good enough job defensively to not let the Knicks run away. And then, who knows what you get from Trey on the offensive end. He does love the hate that pours down at MSG.
Yep, he does. We outside. Can't wait for some more Knicks side talk videos. I agree with pretty much everything you're saying. I think the Knicks are going to pull this one out because I think they care enough to do so. I think in Atlanta, they were earlier this season when the Hawks beat them. Ugly game. You brought it up. I am a little bit worried about Dyson Daniels, but I also think Brunson's going to be good for the assists. So here's how I'm playing this, and I think there's a couple ways. I'm taking Brunson under 27.5 points, and I'm taking the Knicks money line, and that got bumped up. And so because of that negative correlation, I get plus 150 on DK for that, and shop that around. Obviously, use those parlay shoppers to make sure you get that at the best price. But I'll take plus 150 for that negative correlation because the Knicks money line is like minus 350. So to get that minus 350 all the way up to plus 150, just because I added one other prop, right? I like that a lot, and it's that negative correlation. And I think not only do I think that this is super plausible because Dyson Daniels is awesome, but the Knicks have enough weapons to score still. I also think that the assists are going to be coming in a lot more for Jalen Brunson. So the thing I wanted to try to narrow it down to was like, are the Hawks worse against the catch and shoot or the pull-up shot? And the answer is yes. Yes, they are terrible at both. So you can score against them in either way. They give up the second most makes off the pull-up. They give up the third most makes off catch and shoot. This is a Quinn Snyder team to perfection. Way to go, Quinn. So if you look at Brunson, he should be able to dominate this team. And there's a little bit of weirdness. And now what you need to look at here, and I know a lot of people like to look at point guard versus team defense. It's not actually as important as playmaker, primary ball handler. The phrase is primary ball handler. And that's only used on some spots like cleaning the glass and a couple other places. They use primary ball handler, not point guard, because that is much more important to me. A guy who brings the ball up the court isn't the same as the guy who has the ball in the front court. And so that's Brunson. And the point guard, yes, is scoring versus this team. They're giving up the most points to the pick and roll ball handler. They're giving up the second most. I said that off of the pull up. So that's very helpful for guys who have the ball in their hands. But Dyson Daniels is guarding the primary ball handler. He's not guarding the point guard. So against the primary ball handler, Atlanta's in the top half of the league, limiting points per game and field goal percentage to that player, whatever you would consider that, which the consideration is the dude with the ball in his hands the most touches, etc. So with that in mind for Brunson, like last game, they tried to force the ball out of his hands and it got out of his hands a good amount. He had 13 potential assists and just 4 of them. And to make that even more unlucky, the Knicks shot 46% from 3 and 47% from the field, and yet he still only had 4 assists on 13 potential assists. You see what I'm saying? I think he's going to keep going back to the catch and shoot. I think the spot up 3-point shot is going to be available for guys like Mikal Bridges, who we both think is going to have a nice game. So I think that's going to lead to more assists for Brunson. If you wanted to take a negative correlation with him to go over his assists and under his points, I see that as well. But I like the Knicks to pull this one out and get a little bit get back against Trey Young's squad. So I'm going to take that with that negative correlation of him to go under.
Yeah, I mean, at first glance at these props, that had my eyebrows raised. It's like, whoa, that's high. Like Brunson usually is 24, 25. I think it's inflated by the assumption that he's a big game player, and that last year's Knicks, he'd be dropping 45 in this game. But yeah, now he's got a running mate in Cat, and Cat was very aggressive in this matchup against that Atlanta interior D. Probably saw what Jokic did over the weekend and figured he can get his on the inside. And Brunson, yeah, like I said, Dyson Daniels was in his pocket all game last time, so that's not going to be an easy matchup.
Yep, 100%. Yeah, consider that that stuff for Dyson. But that's all the time we have for you in Best Bets. Continue to follow along so you can make sure you see the Play Up Props episode we have up alongside this one each and every weekday moving forward throughout the rest of the season. So until we see you next, happy betting.